The sea, in the European imagination from the 17th to the 20th centuries, was not just a frontier but also a giant floating factory where the greatest life was reduced to oil, bone, and fat. This was not a story about the small sailing ships of the Vikings or the traditional Basques who hunted close to shore. This was the epic of the oceanic whaling voyages, where huge, heavy ships, equipped with boilers and cranes, carried armies of men in search of profit from the largest creatures on the planet. Was a dance of steel and blood, played out on a cold, slippery stage. This was when the real fight began. The wounded whale, a desperate mountain of flesh and muscle, pulled the ship in a frenzy, creating the legendary Nantucket voyage. The water was red, the creature's rasping breaths now mingled with groans of pain. The whaling crew must keep the rope taut but unbroken, endure the tug of a dying force of nature. Eventually, the creature's grandeur fades into a heavy silence. The hunter fires a final iron spear, or sometimes a second harpoon, to finish it off. When death comes, the whale turns, slowly sinks a little, then rises again, a massive, lifeless corpse. Now it is just cargo. The whale's carcass is pumped with compressed air to keep it afloat, and a black flag is stuck to its back to mark ownership. The whaling ship begins towing the prize back to the big boat. The journey back is slow, arduous. When it arrives, the mothership is ready. This ship is unlike any other. It has a giant slip at the stern, a ramp that opens into the water, where the whale, weighing tens of tons, will be pulled up. The entire process of cutting, or flensing and cutting in, was an industrial display of destruction. First, a thick chain was wrapped around the tail fin. The roar of powerful motors and the whine of winches rang out.
Finally, the giant animal retired. Its massive body drifted to the side of the ship.
Struggling against gravity and the creature's immense weight. Bit by bit, the massive carcass slid up the chute, water and blood streaming down, covering the vast deck, commonly known as the flensing deck. As the whale lay there, taking up most of the deck space, it became the center of organized chaos. The butchers, in sturdy hobnailed boots and waterproof leather jackets, stepped out, each holding a flensing knife, a long, curved blade mounted on a handle about 10 to 15 feet long. The work began immediately, with no room for hesitation or emotion. The order of cutting was the rule. First comes the blubber. Butchers make a vertical incision along the whale's spine, from head to tail. Then they make horizontal incisions, spaced a few feet apart. The goal is to peel off the blubber, a thick, precious protective layer, like peeling a banana. This is the blanket piece. The sounds were terrifying, thick fat tearing from muscle, the steel of knives scraping against bone, the creaking of pulleys bearing incredible weight. The deck became extremely treacherous. Blood, fat, and water were slippery as ice, and men danced on it with long, sharp knives, always on the verge of death. One wrong step could see them dragged into the meat grinder of chains and blades. The sea off Peru is a mysterious place, where the cold waves of the Humboldt Current sweep northward, carrying with them a rich variety of marine life. And in this vast expanse, where the water is as dark as black velvet, Peru's commercial squid fishing boats drift silently for weeks, chasing the giant creature that locals call simply but with awe, the Pato squid, a ferocious predator of the deep, which can grow up to 2 meters long and weigh more than 100 kilograms. The Peruvian fishermen, trained for generations, have turned the hunting of this giant squid into an art form, combining traditional experience with modern technology on gleaming steel boats. Filled with the roar of engines, the glare of white halogen lights and the smell of sea salt mixed with diesel, squid season begins around October, when the waters off central and southern Peru cool, creating the perfect conditions for Pato squid to migrate from deep waters to the surface to hunt anchovies and small shrimp. Hundreds of squid fishing boats leave the port of Paita, Chimbote, or Ilo, each like a miniature city on the ocean. The ship's horn sounds in the early morning light. Wives stand on the pier waving handkerchiefs, and sailors tie up anchor lines, tighten boxes of fresh bait, and check mechanical rods. No one knows for sure when they will return. It could be 2 weeks. It could be a month. But everyone understands that these trips are the backbone of the Peruvian coastal economy. On board the Santa Esperanza, a modern commercial squid fishing boat nearly 60 meters long, its deck flooded with high-intensity discharge lights. The fishermen, wearing thick raincoats and hard hats, walk slowly but surely across the slippery deck. They are no longer the hand fishermen of old. Today, squid fishing techniques have been completely mechanized. Along both sides of the ship are dozens of automatic fishing rigs, each with hundreds of hooks attached to electronically flashing baits. These fishing rods are operated by hydraulic motors, moving up and down rhythmically in the night like hundreds of metal arms dancing to the waves. When the fishing lights are turned on, the vast sea around the ship becomes a stage of brilliant white light, a light that attracts giant squid from the deep water. Fascinated by the light like a second moon in the ocean, the ship's commander, often called the Capitán de Pesca, stands on the cockpit, his eyes glued to the radar screen and the sonar scanning the seabed. This device clearly shows red and yellow patches, signs of moving squid at a depth of about 300 to 500 meters. When the signal reaches its maximum, he orders the fishing rig to be lowered, and the entire ship immediately switches to hunting mode. The hydraulic motor roared. The steel cables began to lower the bait to the predetermined depth.
Potong play. Nih, orangnya ini nih. Punya Laude Hadi.
While the central computer automatically adjusted the flashing speed and vibration frequency of the electronic bait. There was no shouting, only the sound of wind and the sound of the machine. But everyone knew the most important moment was approaching. About 15 minutes later, a keng sounded, a signal from a fishing rod on the starboard side. The fisherman on duty, a strong man named Julio, immediately pressed the line retrieval button. The hydraulic rod began to reel in, heavy, and then the water surface suddenly foamed. A red, shiny body twisted violently under the light. When it pulled out of the water. The entire squid was nearly 2 meters long, its tentacles waving wildly, spraying jets of thick black ink. Julio leaned to avoid it, skillfully hooked the squid's head with an iron hook, then together with his teammates, threw it hard onto the deck. The squid flapped on the wooden floor, its body heavy as a sandbag. The smell of fish, the smell of raw squid, the smell of the sea, all mixed together in a flavor that only those who have been to sea understand, the smell of life, of labor. And of danger. The first squid always brings a strange excitement. Everyone cheers, then quickly returns to work. The fishing rods are lowered again, the lights still shining white as day. The night at sea has no boundaries between time, only the continuous rhythm of fishing. Pulling, sorting, freezing, and fishing again. On the aft deck, a group of workers work in the dim yellow light of auxiliary lights. They use sharp knives to cut open the squid bodies, separate the heads and tentacles, sort by size, and then transfer them to the minus 35 degrees Celsius cold storage. Everything has to be done quickly, because every minute of delay reduces the quality of the squid meat, meaning hundreds of dollars in losses. Modern ships like the Santa Esperanza are equipped with automatic wave stabilization systems. So even with strong winds, the ship remains relatively stable. On the screen, small dots of light move. Those are the ships operating in the same sea area. They communicate with each other by radio waves, sharing information but also competing fiercely. Whoever finds the squid school first will have the advantage. Because giant squid do not stay in one place, they move in schools. Food and light. Around midnight, when the sea is calm, the entire surface of the water around the ship acts like a mirror reflecting the lights. Suddenly, from deep below, dozens of squids rush up at the same time, their bodies glowing dimly, natural phosphorescence emitted from the reflective cells. The scene is both magical and terrifying. They cling to the hook, extending their tentacles like prehistoric monsters. The whole deck is ablaze with activity, reels, lines squirting, people shouting. The squids are pulled up, spraying ink everywhere. At one point, a giant squid got stuck between the two booms. Hitting so hard that the steel bar broke, splashing water and squid everywhere. Julio only had time to shout, "Cuidado, be careful," before jumping in with 3 others, restraining the squid with an iron net. They looked like gladiators wrestling with a real sea monster. Every time dawn broke, after a sleepless night, the deck was covered with squid carcasses, hundreds of them layered. Their flesh white, their skin glowing dark red. They took a short break, just a few hours, then continued their shift. At sea, time waits for no one. Each hour of effective fishing can determine the income of the trip.
Par, gimana kabarnya, Par?
In the cold hold, workers checked the temperature, recorded the quantity, and the ship's small cook prepared a simple breakfast: rice, beans, some canned fish, and strong coffee. Laughter rang out, mixed with the sound of the waves, creating a salty symphony of fishermen's lives. As dusk fell, the captain called everyone up to the deck. On the horizon, in the distance, the lights of dozens of other ships sparkle like a floating city. Tonight we will go into deeper water, he said. The big squid is at a depth of 800 meters. Prepare to change the hook and check the motor. Immediately, everyone got to work. The engineers disassembled the hydraulic box, pumped the oil, adjusted the towing speed. At the bow, another group checked the high-power lighting system, giant sodium lamps that could shine for dozens of nautical miles. All according to the precise procedure, like a giant machine controlled by human rhythm. At night, the Sea of Peru became a paradise of light and steel. The ship tilted gently with the waves, seabirds circling, attracted by the bright lights. Sometimes, a school of flying fish rushed to the surface, jumping like a shower of stars. And somewhere, the giant black shadow of a sperm whale or a white nose shark quietly glided by, attracted by the smell of blood and fresh squid. In that moment, everyone on the ship felt how small they were in the vast ocean. But that smallness created pride, because they were the only ones brave enough to live with the sea, facing the wind, the waves and the giant squid that few dared to look directly at. In the control room, the GPS system, weather radar, and satellite communication device work continuously. Capitan receives data from the National Fisheries Center, updating areas with high squid concentrations and warnings of unusually cold currents. On board, each crew member has a clear role. Julio is in charge of the starboard fishing rig. Pedro, a short, stocky man who always smiles, operates the hydraulics, while Jorge, the youngest, at 19, is in charge of sorting the squid. He comes from a small village in Trujillo, from a poor family, his father having died early. Jorge says he used to be afraid of the sea, but when he saw the lights of the squid fishing boats at night, he felt drawn to them like a moth. Now the sea is home, and he has learned to recognize the weather by the color of the water and the smell of the wind. Stories like this are not uncommon. Most of the crew are ordinary people, but they have a world of experience and a strange survival instinct. At when the sun is hot, the ship takes a break. The smell of oil, salt and raw squid mingles. Heavy but familiar. In the kitchen, Chef Hernando prepares ceviche de pota, fresh pato squid slices mixed with lime, chili and shallots. The dish was both spicy and sour, making everyone awake after a long shift. They sat on the floor, eating with their hands, laughing and talking loudly. At one point, Julio took out an old wooden guitar, strummed a few chords, and sang El Marinero, a traditional song of Peruvian fishermen. His voice echoed out into the ocean, mixed with the sound of the waves. Moments like that were the only spiritual medicine in the months of drifting life.
Oh, ini yang gede nih. Iya. Besar. Habis terjagal.
In the afternoon, when the radar detected a new school of squid moving in the deep water, everyone immediately returned to their positions. Capitan turned on the automatic control system. Set to deep line. The rigs lowered more slowly, deeper, and the lights were switched to a green tone, the type of light that research has shown to be the strongest stimulant for Pato squid. At the bottom of the sea, hundreds of electronic lures flashed like a school of small fish. Soon, the sonar screen showed large red dots. The squid had arrived. This time, the giant squid were much bigger. One can weigh up to 120 kilos, with tentacles nearly 3 meters long. When pulled up, they fight back fiercely, wrapping tightly around the cable. By with their mouths. Sometimes, the hook breaks, the line breaks, and the squid falls back into the sea, dragging the bait with it. Julio was hit by a squid on the hand, blood oozing out, but he just smiled, wrapped it in bandages, and continued. "Big squid are fierce," he said, "but they are the ones who pay us well." Indeed, the price of this type of giant squid on the international market can reach up to $3 per ton. And each trip, if favorable, a ship can bring back more than 100 tons. Late at night, the deck is brightly lit again. The giant squid bodies are automatically lowered into the hold by crane. Below, the ammonia cooling system works non-stop. Each tray of squid is stacked tightly in a stainless steel tank. Wrapped in plastic bags and labeled, a dedicated team of workers logs the catch, hourly, squid type, even the GPS location of the catch. The data is used not only for statistics but also by Peruvian oceanographers studying the population dynamics of Dosidicus gigas, a species that is becoming one of South America's main seafood resources. Around 4 in the morning, when the last fishing run ended, it began to rain lightly. Capitan decided to take the boat off for a maintenance day. The next morning, with the sea as calm as glass, the crew took turns checking the entire system. Down in the engine room, the engine roared, steam billowing. Pedro, the engine engineer, lay halfway between 2 oil pipes.
Masternya nih. Master apa? Radio man. Di belakang sana juga ada. Ya.
Cumi besar. Ini mancing dari pagi sampai sore. Mancing cumi besar siang malam. Ini dia cumi yang belum dipotong.
Sweating profusely, holding a wrench to tighten each screw. If the engine stops midway, we'll be shark food, he joked. The group laughed, but everyone knew he wasn't joking. In the afternoon, a fellow ship, the San Miguel, approached. Only a few hundred meters away, they greeted each other with loudspeakers, exchanged cigarettes, coffee, and even some fresh squid. Strange friendships are born at sea, people who only see each other a few times a year. But when needed, they are ready to share fuel, food, or save each other in storms. The sea teaches people kindness in the harshest way. A week later, with the cold hold full, Capitan ordered the bow to turn back to the mainland. The return journey was usually quiet. No more bright lights, no more sound of fishing gear, just the steady sound of waves and the faint smell of cold squid from the hold.